Every once in a while, a game gets announced and then disappears, typically falling down into development hell, never to be seen again. But recently, Dambuster Studios decided to grab the defibrillators and bring a game back to the realm of the living. Hey guys, Matt here, and today we're going to be talking about Dead Island 2. A little bit of history on the game's development, as well as my thoughts on the game, both positive and negative. So grab those blueprints, repair your weapons, and let's get into this.
Hold on!
Seriously, bro?
Sweet!
On, dude, time to split.
So, Techland was originally set to develop Dead Island 2, but instead they decided to focus on developing Dying Light with Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. Because of this, Deep Silver went looking for a new developer until the guys over at Jaeger Development pitched the game to Deep Silver in late 2012 and got the deal. Shortly after that, Jaeger established a new division called GmbH for development of Dead Island 2. Fast forward to 2014 Gamescom, Deep Silver showed off gameplay footage from an early version of the game. And based on the gameplay, people were able to deduce that the game was going to take place in California, with landmark locations such as Santa Monica Pier and Hollywood. Deep Silver also stated that the game would feature 4 playable characters, though we only got to see 2 of them at this point in time. Things were looking really good for Jaeger, and it seemed like the studio would actually hit their scheduled release of Q2 2015. That is, until Q2 came and went with no release. Then, in July of 2015, Deep Silver announced that Jaeger had been dropped from the project and development would be moved to another unnamed developer. The managing director of Jaeger Development later stated that the company's departure from the project occurred because, quote, Jaeger and Deep Silver's respective visions of the project fell out of alignment. Moving on to March of 2016, Sumo Digital announced that it had taken over the development. That's right, the guys behind Little Big Planet 3 and Crackdown 3 were gonna be developing Dead Island 2. Oh boy. After Sumo took on the project, all we really heard about it was essentially, hey guys, it's coming. Don't worry, it's coming. I mean, there were some rumors that Sumo was just building on the work Jaeger did, but very little public information is available, and even less of it is reliable. But who cares, because in August 2019, it was announced that development of the game had been passed on to Dambuster Studios, an internal studio of Deep Silver. And this is where development would finally stay. Thank fucking God. We got a shiny new trailer in 2022, then a few months later a gameplay trailer, and finally the game released April 21st, 2023 for PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X/S. And honestly, I'm just happy it's finally out.
I mean, this is all his fault, the selfish wanker! Will you stop standing there?
Dead Island 2 takes place 10 years after the events of Riptide, set in California, or more specifically, LA and San Francisco, which have been quarantined due to a zombie outbreak. You're on a flight out of this hellhole, but unfortunately, things don't go exactly as planned, and it crashes. Shortly before the plane crashes, you get to pick between 6 characters, all with various stats and abilities. And me being me, I chose the guy on all the advertising for the game, Jacob. Now, I'm not going to go that in depth with the story since honestly, it's the weakest aspect of the game and there's not much to say. I will admit there were some moments that were entertaining to me, and the voice actors did a damn good job with what they were given, but overall, it's pretty underwhelming and feels incomplete, since nothing interesting really happens until there's around 7 story quests left. But the most offensive thing about the story was the ending. I was legitimately stun-locked at the end of my stream by Dead Island 2's ending, just trying to wrap my head around what just happened. The ending just sorta happened and felt like they were trying to set up a sequel, maybe? I don't know, man. It was just an incredibly disappointing conclusion to a lackluster story that left a lot of plot points open. As for the visuals, I want to be transparent and let you know I was playing this on PC with the specs listed on screen here. So obviously your experience may differ, but for me, this game visually looks better than anything I ever thought would be tied to the Dead Island name. Even comparing it to the early gameplay footage from years ago, it's like night and day. The flesh mechanic is insane and makes the gore look absolutely incredible. You can break bones, smash heads, knock eyeballs out of their sockets, and just watch them dangle. And so much more. You can really tell that a lot of development time went into the gore physics, with how many ways you're able to dismember a zombie, making every kill feel fresh and unique. Plus, the facial animations are filled with so much life and emotion. Hell, they made me more invested in the cutscenes than the actual story. Not only that, but the game runs buttery smooth as well. And so far, I haven't noticed any major issues while playing it on my PC. But let's be real for a moment. You're not getting this game for the narrative and the great visuals. So let's talk about the gameplay. Just like the previous games, Dead Island 2 features first-person melee combat with various weapons such as axes, machetes, knives, and maces, all being obtainable by scavenging the playable world. Bashing zombies' heads in feels satisfying and slightly more refined than the previous entries. Charged attacks don't feel nearly as sluggish, and you get a pretty solid amount of stamina right off the bat. Some weapons can feel a bit floaty at times, but really it's just the melee system I and many other fans know and love. But melee weapons aren't the only thing in your arsenal, you also have guns. The gunplay has always been pretty bad in the Dead Island games, even to the point where I would sometimes actively avoid picking up guns. But Dambuster Studios did a decent job of polishing the gunplay for Dead Island 2. And now I actually enjoy using the firearms. ADSing is still kinda garbage, since when you aim down sight and fire, your sight just shakes uncontrollably, and at that point, it's best to just not do it. But hip firing works surprisingly well, and sure, the gunplay may not be as refined as other modern shooters, but nevertheless, it's still a huge improvement over the last entry in the series. And worth acknowledging. Then there's equipment, or curveballs as the game calls them. As you progress through the game, you'll unlock new equipment, either by stumbling across it during a quest, or by purchasing it through a trader. You can have 2 curveballs equipped at a time, and instead of crafting or purchasing as many as you want, Dead Island 2 opted for a cooldown meter. I find this to be kind of an odd change to throwable equipment that I keep going back and forth on whether or not I like it, but I don't think it's a deal breaker by any means. It just seems like an unnecessary change. And finally, Fury Mode. Fury Mode is this charge up ability where you enter a zombie-esque mind state, dropping all your weapons and only being able to use your fists. But that doesn't really matter because in Fury Mode, you're gonna tear through hordes, since you get an overall boost in strength. I found this to be quite an enjoyable mechanic, since you get to use the special type zombies' abilities against them. However, you can only use some of the zombie abilities if you get a hold of the ability skill card. So let's talk about that. Dead Island 2 ditches the skill tree system we saw in the previous entries and instead goes for this kind of weird skill card system. Every time you level up, you'll receive a new skill card slot, and you can unlock the actual skill cards by finding them around the map, completing certain story quests, and by completing side quests. In my opinion, it's not as good as having a skill tree since there's certain things you can't upgrade, but it's still kinda cool to mess around with different card combos. There are 4 skill card types, first being ability skill cards. These skills grant additional movement or attack options. By applying these skill cards, the Slayer can do things like block incoming attacks or dodge them. Survival skill cards. These focus on increasing the health or healing of the Slayers. Their main focus is to keep the Slayer alive and help them get through the game. There's also Slayer cards, which are more designed for offense. They give you bonuses for certain actions, such as cutting off limbs or getting headshots, and they just overall give your character a boost in power. And finally, Newman cards, which I absolutely hate the name of because I know it means new human. These cards focus more on zombie abilities. These skills allow the Slayer to utilize various zombie based attacks, such as spitting acid or a powerful ground slam. Like I said before, I do prefer the skill tree, but the skill cards are fine. Plus, they add replay value since certain Slayers can only access certain cards, so you'll want to go back and play through the game as a different character so that you can experience the other cards. Crafting makes a return, and frankly, I'm just happy it's not like Dying Light 2's poor excuse for a crafting system. You pick up parts from around the map and use them to repair and upgrade your weapons. You can even match the level of your weapons with your player level, so players can continue using the weapons they like throughout the game. However, upgrades, repairs, and matching your weapon level costs in game currency, but that's relatively easy to obtain. Honestly, there were only a few things that disappointed me about the crafting. One being that the blueprints aren't as extravagant as they were in the previous games, having only basic names and a lot less variety. And then the fact that you couldn't craft as many medkits as you wanted. I can see how letting the player do this would break the game, but I just think back to those times where a friend would ask me for a med kit and I would just vomit out 30 of them. And it would just be so hilarious to see the mountain of healing items just on the ground. Unfortunately, those times are over though, since the maximum amount of med kits you can hold now is 5. And finally, see these things? These things right here? Buy them. Trust me, you'll want to get these. They're essentially keys to supply stashes that have fantastic weapons. On top of that, a ton of crafting supplies. I ignored them for most of my playthrough, and I regret it immensely. So don't make the same mistake I did. Otherwise, you might miss out on a really sick gun or a cool new melee weapon. To wrap things up, despite the vast majority of people dunking on the game, I really enjoyed my time with Dead Island 2. Don't get me wrong, it does have many issues when it comes to narrative and even gameplay, but to be honest, the same can be said for the other Dead Island games. Ever since I finished Dying Light 2, I've been waiting for another fun, goofy co-op game that I can dick around in with friends, and this game checks all the boxes. It's not for everyone, but if you're looking for dumb fun with friends, then you should definitely consider picking this game up. However, if you're looking for a great single player experience, then you should probably pass on Dead Island 2. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment down below if you plan on picking up Dead Island 2, and if you already have it, let me know your thoughts on it. Also, consider subscribing for more content like this. Also, I really grinded out this game to try and get this video out as soon as possible, so if you could drop a like, that would also be greatly appreciated. But anywho, I've been rezoraptor, and I will see you guys next time. Peace!